Chapter 8, Section 2. Although once or twice the light chaise slurred as it caught in great ruts made by the disabled light coach, there was no other sign of the late or recent violence. The mob was utterly gone. It was not until they reached Roxbury that they knew the time. The village clock struck 2. Now, is that a.m. or p.m.? Think about, they just came from the guardhouse. It was nighttime. Therefore, it is 2. Thus far, they had not met one single human being. But here were a few turbulent fellows hanging about an inn door, and in Milton itself they were signaled to stop by a group whose faces they never did see. But Dr. Warren's chaise and horse were recognized. Go ahead, Warren. Good luck, Warren. Now, if you think about it, the men whose faces they didn't see, like the group whose faces they never did see, what might they have been up to? Were they going to be friendly to these individuals, or maybe they were threatening them? And then they saw Dr. Warren's chaise. Think about that. They went up the steep road from Milton. It was here Mr. Light had his country seat. A country seat would be where a wealthy person would spend their summers, usually, almost like having a lake house or a beach house today. Instead of staying in the hot, sticky city during the summer, wealthy individuals would have a place out in the countryside. So this is where Mr. Light had his country seat. Then Johnny got out, struck tinder, and lighted the lantern he had found in the chaise. He stood by the entrance gates. Yes, Scylla was right. They had smashed the arms carved upon the gates. Remember, the arms are the family crest, their symbol. The poor people of Milton had had enough of that rising eye. Johnny wasn't sure, but he had as well. He walked ahead and Scylla drove the horse. Thus, half seen and in the dark, things did not look too bad. Scylla had a key to the back door which showed hatchet marks, but was not broken down. They went into the dining room, and from the lantern, Scylla lit the candles in the 2 candelabra on the table, 20 candles in all, and the room filled with light. Now, we're going to take a moment and do a post-it about that to analyze the author's craft revealed here. So, I want you to really think about this. How does the author use this simple detail, the number of candles, to show the light's wealth? So we have this quote, right? Scylla lit the candles in the 2 candelabra on the table, 20 candles in all. But, and I did some research, and when you take a look at this PowerPoint on your own, you can click this link. So according to the research department of Colonial Williamsburg, a room lit with 7 candles appeared luminous and splendid. If you think back, Harry Potter fans, lumos means light, so that L-U-M is a root word meaning light. So 7 candles made a room appear luminous and splendid to an 18th century or 1700s observer. Most colonial homes included only 2 candlesticks, and the average number was slightly less than 5 per household. So imagine this. The average family had 5 or fewer candles in their whole house, but the lights have 20 just in their dining room. Go ahead and write a post-it. Please pause the video briefly. Fear had overcome the lights as they had sat down to eat. Bread broken and never eaten. The roast of beef, with Yorkshire pudding sticking in the cold gravy. A bowl of salad was still fresh. Wine in the slender goblets. Already the great house did not seem to have been abandoned for a few hours only, but for years. It was as if witchcraft had been worked upon it. Johnny saw that Scylla had started to get the silver together. Where's Mrs. Bessie? Oh, she left earlier than we did, in a farm cart. But you know, she'll be all right. Now, why will Mrs. Bessie be all right? Imagine, think back. Johnny and Scylla almost just got accosted by a group of men who, upon seeing Dr. Warren's horse and chaise, realized, we don't want to mess with them. Why aren't they going to mess with Mrs. Bessie? Scylla went to work packing the silver, and she built up a little fire on the kitchen hearth so that she might have hot water to wash the dishes. Neat by nature, she would leave the house tidy. Johnny took the lantern he had left on the kitchen table and walked through the silent house. He could see that every window in the lower floor had been broken, but no one had entered. He went upstairs, Lavinia's room, and strewed about it things he had never seen before: stays, kerchiefs, patch boxes, ribbons, fripperies, women's clothing items. This is similar to maybe if she had been packing in a rush and pulled everything out of her dresser drawers. It smelled faintly of lavender. He went to Mr. Light's room. The great four-poster, that would be a bed with tall legs, soared to the ceiling, a damask dressing gown, and Mr. Light's best wig on a wig rest. Off the big chamber and one step down was a smaller room designed as a dressing room. Mr. Light seemingly had used this as an office. Here was his desk, and above it a painting of his favorite ship, the Unicorn. And here, judging by the tipped-over chair and the rumpled rugs, Mr. Light had had his all-but-fatal fit. It had caught him as he had been packing his more important papers he wished no one to see. Johnny picked up what looked like a leather-bound book. It had been hollowed out, turned into a box. In a bookcase, no one would suspect it. Now let's take a moment and visualize that. So this is not an uncommon thing to have a fake book that looks really real, but that's actually a box. I have one at my own house. I keep secret things in it, like the candy that I don't want to share. It can be very useful. So Johnny's looking in this. He's finding some important papers. In a bookcase, no one would suspect it. He glanced at the papers within. Every one of them he saw Sam Adams would be thankful to get. These he put in his pocket. Other books were scattered on the floor. Johnny picked up a heavy Bible, hoping that this, too, would prove to be a box. He put it on the desk and opened it. There were sheets of paper between the Old and New Testaments. Here, a man might write his genealogy. Now, you know what genealogy is from 7th grade. That's your family history. It's your family tree. And this was actually really common in the time of Johnny Tremain. And even my family had a family Bible where you would actually write in who was born, who died, who had a baby, and when it happened. So if you imagine a very large Bible, it would have some empty pages where you would literally write down, so-and-so married such and such, they on such and such date, they had baby A, name, and the date, and they would keep their entire family tree in the Bible. So pause here, make a prediction. What might Johnny find in this Bible, in this genealogy? Go ahead and pause, turn and talk, figure this out. So, the first Jonathan Light had been born in Kent, that's in England, in 16-something, and he had married a Matilda something, had come to Boston and had 4 sons and 3 daughters, and they, all 7, had sons and daughters and so on. Now he was coming to the generation in which he might expect to find his own mother. Here indeed was Merchant Light himself, and his daughter Lavinia, the 2 sons who had drowned at Guadalupe, the girls dead in infancy. Remember, we went back through and did the family tree of Merchant Light. Remember when we talked about how he was very sad? He only had 1 living child left. That's Miss Lavinia Light. He even found that Aunt Bert, remember the one who was so mean about him when he visited the Lights, who had stayed on at Boston with her own servant. He found 1 Lavinia Light after another. One married an Endicott and one an Otis. Those would be last names. Neither was the right age for his mother. So this would be fairly common back then, and even today, to have a family name that's passed down. For instance, there's many people in my family named David. We have Big David, we have Baby David, we have Uncle David. Maybe you have people in your family who have the same name. Scratched out in such a way he had at first thought it was a mere decoration on the elaborately written page, there was another name. It was Lavinia Light. He held the lantern closer. Born 1740. Married to Dr. Charles Latour, both of whom had died of plague in Marseille, France, shortly before his own birth. His mother had told him he had been born in France, and that his father had died before his own birth. But why Dr. Charles Latour? And why had his mother's name been scratched off the family record? But nevertheless, this was the very spot where he might hang his own few meager leaves to the light tree. Now remember, this was one of our vocab words, meager, so meaning limited or not very many. So this is where Johnny says, this is where I belong on the Light family tree. Now they say in this genealogy that Johnny's mom has died before he was born. Now, remembering what we know about Johnny's mom, she didn't die until Johnny was maybe 10, 11, 12, right before his apprenticeship to Mr. Lapham. Also kind of impossible to have a baby when you're dead. So I wonder, maybe you should wonder too, wink, if maybe there's something going on. Maybe there's a reason behind this saying that Johnny's mom died, and maybe she actually didn't. Let's see if we can read more to find out. Although in his daydreaming he had often pictured himself a nephew, grandnephew, or even a grandson of Merchant Light, he had never once believed the relationship was that close. Now he checked over the generations. His grandfather, Roger Light, dead now for 20 years and builder of this very house, had been the younger brother of Jonathan Light. Johnny himself was the merchant's grandnephew. He took his knife from his pocket and cut the pages from the family Bible. Sometime they might be of use to him. Ooh, make a prediction there. Just jot it down real quick. We're not going to talk about it. Take 15 seconds. What do you think he might do with these pages that prove he is a relative? Go ahead and pause the video to take a prediction. Scylla was calling him. She wanted him to help her carry the heavy boxes and hampers or baskets of silver to the chaise. On the sideboard, as yet unpacked, stood the 4 standing cups of the lights. Which one is yours, Johnny? He looked them over carefully. Only a silversmith could have told them apart. The base of one had been ever so little bent and straightened again. This is my cup. Well, take it now. No. He set it down and turned restlessly to Scylla. He could not say to anyone what went through his mind, not to Scylla, not even to himself. He acted and spoke blindly. If this is seeming a little weird and confusing to you, hold on to that. This is something we will reflect on a lot later in the text. But Johnny, it isn't stealing to take back what Mr. Light stole from you. I don't want it. What? No, I'm better off without it. I want nothing of them, neither their blood nor their silver. He doesn't want their blood, meaning he doesn't want to be a blood relative of them, not that he wants to kill them or something. So neither their blood nor their silver. I'll carry that hamper for you, Syl. Mr. Light can have the old cup. But your mother, right, thinking that maybe this would feel like a betrayal to Johnny's mother. Well, she didn't like it either. He came back when he had left the hamper and stopped by the kitchen hearth. Scylla had built up a little fire of faggots to heat water. Remember, that word means a small bundle of sticks. He put his 2 hands on the mantelpiece and his forehead on his hands. He stood like that a long time. His grandfather had built this house. His mother had played on the floor of this kitchen. Was it here his father had come? His father, the French doctor? Dr. Latour, the Bible had it. Here was mystery, surely. Why not Dr. Tremaine? Where did this name come from, Tremaine? And why had the Bible said both he and Lavinia Light died of plague in Marseille, 1758, 3 months before he himself had been born? Now, if you're thinking about timelines, born in 1758, and Johnny was born 3 months later, so that puts Johnny's year of birth at 1759. Does it matter? Does it or doesn't it? He answered his own question aloud and took from his pocket the heavy pages he had cut from the Bible, all written over with the names of his genealogy. Pause. Don't look. What is he gonna do? He could not think now why he had ever cut them out. Slowly tearing each sheet to ribbons, he fed them to the fire upon the hearth. Then Scylla was asking him to close and fasten all the heavy shutters through the house. This would protect the interior a little in spite of broken window panes. So the shutters are big wooden doors, basically, that close over the windows. They would be made to withstand a storm, but they're also going to prevent people from very easily being able to walk in through the broken windows. His footsteps echoed through the vast, silent reaches of the house. One after another, the heavy shutters slammed to, and he bolted them. A protest of unused hinges, just like my door sounds, and then a bang, and he went on to the next, the echo of his own footsteps. My grandfather built this house. My mother knew it and loved it. My father dead before ever I was born. And I want you to think to yourself, is this internal monologue, or is he actually speaking these words out loud? Now, for as long as it stood, this would be a haunted house. He felt the ghosts waiting in darkness until he and Scylla were gone before they stepped forth to take possession. Now, this is a piece of historical fiction that's been very realistic up to this point. So do you think that Johnny is thinking about literal ghosts, or are these more metaphorical ghosts, almost ghosts in place of memories? You decide for yourself. Merchant Light, soon enough he too would be back here. Miss Lavinia? She might live to be 100, but the time would come when, wilt she or not, she must return to this house. This haunted house, with its thin wreath of wraiths or ghosts, and his mother's among them. He had seen her face, heard her voice so clearly that night he had lain by her grave on Copp's Hill. He thought of her with love and a tender understanding, an understanding he had been too young to give her when she had died. But he left the haunted chambers, echoing halls, and went gladly to the kitchen where Scylla was. For the dead should not look at the living, nor the living too long upon the dead. Scylla, unaware of his emotions, looked about her with satisfaction. She had finished her work. Now it will be in good order when the lights come back. Now Johnny just said that the lights would come back, but he said that Merchant Light would be back soon. Right after he said that this house was full of ghosts. So what version of Merchant Light are we talking about here? A living version or maybe a ghost version? Same with Lavinia. He says she might live to be 100, but the time would come when, wilt she or not, she must return to this house. Does he mean she the living or she in the future as a ghost? So thinking about that, Scylla says, now it will be in good order or well arranged when the lights come back. Johnny felt sad. He went to her and put his arms about her and his thin cheek against her hair. Scylla, they won't ever come back. Never? No, this is the end of one thing, the beginning of something else. They won't come back because there is going to be a war, civil war, and we'll win. First, folk like them get routed out of Milden, then out of Boston, and the cards are going to be reshuffled, dealt again. Shall I shutter the kitchen too? Yes. Each time a shutter groaned, protested, and then came to with a bang. It seemed to say, this is the end. And the words echoed through the house. This is the end. This is the end. My mother played on the floor of this kitchen. My grandfather was but a young man when he built this house, and I, a grandson, have better right to it, doubtless, than an elder brother. The house was still filled with midnight and ghost, but as they closed and locked the heavy kitchen door behind them, they saw it was close upon dawn. So it's like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. It is like a funeral, Scylla whispered, only worse. So he knew that much of what he had been feeling, Scylla had also felt. Along down Old Country Road, marching through the meager half-light of the new day, came a company of Minutemen, up and out early, drilling or practicing for coming battles before it was yet the hour to get to their chores. Left, right, left, right, left. They did not march too well. Now, you've learned about this in history class. The British soldiers had all the resources in the world. They had the training, they had the supplies, they had every single thing they needed. These soldiers, these Minutemen, they can't even march right. and a boy no bigger than Dusty Miller had put a fife to his lips, was trying to blow it. He made awkward little tootles. Now he's playing a fife, and therefore I have a gift for you. I know how much you love my musical gifts. So a fife is a small flute-like instrument, usually accompanied by drums. Its use has a very patriotic and spirited connotation. So of course, what have I done for you? Provided you a video.
Turkish March, Road to Boston, The Harriet.
So this would be drums, of course, obviously. And this is what a fife would look like. The fife is that high-pitched whistling instrument. So that's enough of that. We will come back to fifes undoubtedly sometime later. However, he made awkward little tootles, significantly less beautiful than that video we just heard. The men marched on past the defaced or broken gates of the Light's country seat, never turning to look at them or Dr. Warren's chaise with Scylla and Johnny under the hood. Oh, God help them, thought Johnny. They haven't seen those British troops in Boston. I have. They haven't seen the gold lace on the generals, those muskets all so alike, and every one has a bayonet. They haven't seen. The chaise overtook and passed the marching farmers. Now, before you move on to section 3, I'd like you to do a quick write. And we're going to come back a few pages to Johnny questioning his choice to remove the genealogy pages from the Light Family Bible. He puts them in the fire. Why does he do this? What does it show about how he has changed? Make this quick write 19. Take 3 to 4 minutes. And this is also the end of this video.